Welcome to the In-Between-Man podcast, where men can be men. I'm not kidding. It's the truth. Welcome. If you're new to the podcast, we're glad that you're here. Please do me a favor. If any of this content resonates with you at all, and you can identify with it, if you just want to leave a comment that says hashtag GFY, that'll be enough for me to know that I should keep going, because I'm not getting a lot of feedback, which is fine. I understand. I'm a new podcast. I'm not expecting to have 100 million downloads in a week, maybe. But, I need to understand. I'm constantly evolving and constantly changing. And just even this week have been a lot of new changes that I'm going to be implementing and super excited about. If you haven't, and this is your first time listening to our podcast, please do me a favor and go check out our introductory section. It's the In-Between-Man introduction, and I have a link to the playlist in the description. And what that basically does is it allows you to get introduced to me and who I am, what we're trying to accomplish, which is answer the question of why men are struggling today, how we're going to do that, where we're going to use the information, and all that kind of good stuff. It's just going to give you more detail to determine whether or not this podcast is right for you or isn't right for you. Because the last thing I want you to do, not that you would do it, but the last thing I want you to, I wouldn't want you to be a listener that isn't interested in anything that we're talking about. I mean, you know what I mean? Then you're just wasting time. And I'm not in the business of helping people waste their time. So find another podcast that you're super stoked about. But I think that'd be a good way to get into a little bit more about who we are. The other dynamic here, too, that we're going to be talking about is over the course of the last, let's call it 5 episodes, we've been talking about the State of American Men 2025 research study. It was published within the last, 90 days, and it gives you insight into where men are, and even women, with regards to today, the environment that we live in today, the concept of economic anxiety, what that means for men and why they might be struggling with it, right? The idea of the man box, what that means, how that all works. And are you in the man box? Do you even know if you're in the man box, right? Then we have this notion of online narratives, using the internet to find like-minded groups or Facebook groups or things of that nature where we can further exacerbate our feelings for specific groups or whatever, right? So the dynamic of the manosphere, have you heard that stuff? Part of me thinks that and I'm going to get into one last thing here, but part of me thinks that there is so much great research out there about why men are struggling today that I feel like they're just whatever, and I talked about this in my last podcast about just sort of being in this loop of insanity. But I don't feel a sense of urgency from men to try to overcome this stuff. And I understand why, but this is what the study, the State of American Men 2025 study, mentions. And I've been using it ever since, okay? Which is, and it's in the description below, without deliberate intervention, you and I, what we're doing right now is deliberate communication. Hopefully, you'll be able to identify with some of the things that we're talking about and can deduce that you want to try to get beyond that. Or you recognize that what you're doing isn't in the best interest for you and the people that you're around, so that you want to make a change. This is all about being open to the idea of change, okay? And so without deliberate intervention to redefine masculine success today is purely based on a man's ability to provide financially to his family, to his children, to whoever it happens to be. They are judged by how well they can do that. You make more money, you're a good guy, right? You make billions of dollars, you're a freaking epic guy, right? You make minimum wage, you're not such a great guy. Really? But that's the narrative, okay? We've grown up with that. So to redefine masculine success beyond economic provisions, which is what I just explained, financial impact, and to challenge the man box's emotional restrictions. So I have a program that I am going to start going over soon that speaks to the traditional male value system. And in the traditional male value system, there is call it behavior that we as men, I'll speak for myself, grew up with for freaking centuries, which is being emotionally stoic, okay? Emotionally stoic, meaning that if I lose in a wrestling match to a guy and I'm upset and I don't know why and I start crying, my dad comes over and tells me, shut the fuck up. Don't let that person see you cry. Stop being a fucking pussy. Get over there on the freaking bench, wipe the tears from your eyes, and we're going to get up and try it again next time. Stop. Right? That is being emotionally stoic, not showing emotions. And at the same time, too, the flip side of being emotionally stoic is if we feel like we do need to ask for help because we don't know where we're at, or we're concerned that we might do something dreadful to ourselves, we don't ask for help. We don't seek help, because that's another way for you to be judged, for me to be judged as being a pussy. And if any man gets judged that they're a pussy, it's going to go right to their core, right to their core. What I want to talk about and what I want to get out to the masses and get out to you is how, first of all, do you agree with that? Do you agree with this idea of being emotionally stoic? Can you acknowledge that that is an unrealistic expectation for men today? It's finally arrived, and we're here, that it's okay to be vulnerable. But what's happening is this isn't an overnight thing. So society has caught up. We said, hey, dude, you can be vulnerable now. You can be, you can let all that stuff out. And we're still stuck because we've been burnt by other people who are manipulating us, or we still feel that we will be judged, and we've opened up once and we've gotten fried. And yeah, right. So can you acknowledge, or at least agree, that being emotionally stoic shouldn't be something that men consider a value? Why? Because we don't learn how to talk about the stuff that we're stuffing. We ignore it. And it festers and grows in our body for fucking decades and turns us into a toxic individual. Okay? So I went on a rant, but follow me out. We risk losing an entire generation of men to depression, anxiety, and despair. We risk losing an entire generation. Does anybody know how big a generation is, including men and women? It's about, on average, I would say it's anywhere between 50 to 70 million people. If you break it out with simple math and say 25 million of the 50 million in that generation are men, that's what we're risking here, guys. Like, does that concern anybody? Like, do you honestly not believe that we risk losing men if they don't start talking more about being depressed, having anxiety, and just feeling in complete despair? Like, we're going to be okay with that? The reality is that no, I'm not going to be okay with it. I don't like it. And I want nothing more for men to realize and recognize and believe me when I say, yes, pulling up toxic things that we've held on to for decades is not fun. It is going to be uncomfortable. It could be so uncomfortable that considering harming yourself might seem like a better idea because of all of the tapes that we have in our brain about not being a pussy and and not asking for help. So if you can acknowledge that, I'm not saying you need to do anything about it, but if you can acknowledge that being able to no longer have to be emotionally stoic could be a good thing for men if they learn how to share what's bothering them. But it is not an overnight thing, and it is not going to be an overnight thing. And I'm committed to helping all of you learn and go through the process yourself. I've gone through it. I've gone through the process of believing that someone that I trusted would tell me it would be okay if I wrote down all my secrets. And more importantly, everyone. Not just a couple, every single one. And I want to provide a place where men feel comfortable to do that. Okay? All right, so let's get into headline number 6. Headline number 6 is an interesting one, okay? Because it speaks to this space where men are in. So headline number 6 for the State of American Men 2025 research study is the following. Many men fear being called out or canceled. Okay? I think everybody's worried about being canceled, right? So this is another short topic. This was not going to be a long-winded podcast today, but I'm putting it out there with the hopes that you can identify with what this research study is talking about. A majority of men think their reputation can be destroyed by a single comment, and many support tearing down diversity, equity, and inclusion, DE&I. Percent of men who agree with the following statement. Here we go. Men can have their reputation destroyed just for speaking their minds these days. 72% of men agreed with that. More masculine energy is needed in the marketplace. 54% of men agree with that. The media is negatively biased against men. 58% of the people in the survey agreed with that. I support getting rid of diversity, equity, inclusion. 47% of men agree with that. The youngest and oldest men who say that they are worried about being called out are also in support of getting rid of DE&I. What does that tell you? We feel like we're being attacked from the front. We feel like we're being attacked from the side, from the left side. We feel like we're being attacked from the right side. And we feel like we're being attacked from behind. And there's nowhere we can go where we can feel good enough about where we are and what we're doing that we can talk about this stuff. So we stay in a place of no man's land. No man's land. I brought this up in the last episode. I'm going to bring it up again. What is no man's land? No man's land is being in a spot where you recognize that talking about your feelings and being emotionally stoic is what you do. So you confirm that you're not going to cry and you stuff that rage, anger, fear, emotional distress, all those things down. Okay? And then at the same time, when you've been told that it's okay to now talk about all those things, that you're too scared to do it. Because what happens if you get judged? What happens if you tell your girlfriend and she doesn't want to be with you? What happens if she confirms that I'm not of value and that I'm a fucking loser, right? So what happens is you get stuck in no man's land. And here's no man's land, all right? And you don't talk about your feelings and you don't ask for help. And what happens is your mindset is in a circular infinity loop telling you not to do anything, right? Don't do anything. Don't bring it up. like I said before, the true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And here in no man's land, this is what men are doing. They're for today, they're 75% leaning toward I need to ask for help, and 25%, not going to. And then all of a sudden they divert right back to no man's land. They stay in this spot of nothing. They stay in the spot of just pain. And the scary part about it is men hold on to this stuff, not for years, but for fucking decades. I mean, can you imagine? I hope you can't, but just think about how much emotional pain an individual might be in if they were sexually assaulted at a young age and were a man. It's just as bad for a woman too, but let's just use it. In this case, it's just a man. A 8-year-old boy is sexually abused in any capacity. And they don't tell their parents. They don't tell teachers at school. They don't tell anyone. And they carry that mess with them until they're 45 years old. And the toxicity that has created is causing men with all types of trauma to stay in no man's land. It's too fucking brutal to even consider getting that out. Yeah, and they don't. So they settle for misery or a bullet in their head. And I am seeing more men, based on the data, are willing they would rather do harming themselves than facing the consequences or the freedom of letting it go and sharing your secrets with someone else and not being judged and not being ridiculed and all that stuff. So these things that are mentioned here in this study are, in my opinion, confirmation that men are feeling attacked. Men are feeling overwhelmed in so many different areas that they just don't know where to go. And they don't know how to manage it. And they're just raw. They're raw fucking nerves. And it's terrible. I hate it. All right, this is the last data point for this podcast, titled Canceled Culture. The fear of being canceled is particularly worrying for men aged 25 and over, and for white men. For men aged 35 and over, believing that men's reputation can be destroyed for speaking their mind is associated with higher odds of suicidal tendency. 1.6 times greater men over the age of 35 and over are associated with higher odds of suicidal tendency. I mean, isn't that just what I just talked about? The data is confirming just that. They used 35, I used 45. 35 is worse, right? White men, only white men report more anxiety if they also feel that their reputation can be destroyed by speaking their minds. So we all know what being canceled means, right? Being canceled means you are shut off from all social media. You have no opinion. You have no public opinion on anything. Anything that you say gets thrown back in your face. You're criticized. You're looked down upon. You're ridiculed by the public. You're ridiculed by the news media. You're ridiculed by everyone. Feminist, non-feminist, whoever it is. Being canceled is a very brutal thing for anyone in society, right? So men are worried about that. Just that. But they're also worried about not being able to really share what's going on. They're also worried about being judged after they do decide that they're going to share what they want to talk about and what that must feel like. Can you imagine how terrible you would feel if someone finally got up enough courage to be like, I am going to work through this fucking agonizing pain that has been sitting in my gut for fucking 2.5 decades. And I'm going to finally share it with someone. I'm going to finally do it. I'm not worried about the consequences. I don't want to hurt myself. I want to talk to somebody and know that I'm not being judged. And they walk into a place or they share it with someone who doesn't understand what I'm talking about, and they get eviscerated for sharing their feelings. They get told everything that they hoped that they wouldn't get told if they just shared what they're talking about. And the opposite happens. Then they're lost. And it's a shame. It's a fucking shame. So I'm in this interesting spot where I am trying to scream from the hilltops that we need to do something, that men need to do something. By the way, I'm just going to let all of you know, this is not a sponsor of today's program, but I am going to imbibe in a grapefruit beverage. This is Fresca. It's a grapefruit beverage. It's sugar-free, and it's freaking delicious. When I become a quintrillionaire podcaster, Fresca, you are going to sponsor my podcast. That's it. You're just going to sponsor it. And if you don't, I'll still drink it. And now I lost my train of thought. But my point is that like the sense of urgency just doesn't feel like it's there. It feels like it's more the fear. It feels like more like if I keep waiting long enough, right, this stuff will go away. And I'm here to tell you that it's not. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse for you and for everyone else. If we, me and you, whoever, don't start helping men understand that we are on a ride that will end like this. Hey, listen, this is a public show. I don't need you fucking the pillow, dude. Just get what? Without deliberate intervention to redefine masculine success beyond economic provision and to challenge the man box emotional restrictions, we risk losing an entire generation of men to depression, anxiety, and despair. Okay? What that means is if we keep going the way that we're going, I hope this will go away soon. And grinding it out. And just today it will go away. Right? And I hope it goes away. But I'm feeling worse as every day goes on. That's going to happen. We're going to lose an entire generation of good men who are depressed, riddled with anxiety, and are stuck in no man's land, which is a total state of despair. And I can't have that happen. Not on my watch. I want nothing more than to be able to help someone who is willing to start. And very soon I will start talking about my program and what I want to do. But I want to finish these headlines, and then we'll figure out a way to get that out to the marketplace. But for right now, it's not homework, but like, can you relate to this stuff? Does it resonate with you? Can you identify with it? Can you identify with it and don't want to admit that you identify with it? Can you do that? Can you identify it and say to yourself, I'll never fucking do that? If that's your answer, I'll take that. You know, we're in a spot, guys. Not only just men, but everyone. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but men are having an incredibly challenging and difficult time accepting that it's okay to share your vulnerability, share your feelings, share your trauma. Why? because for the last however many centuries, we've been taught not to do it. And I understand why. Believe it. I understand why. But let me tell you, if this freaking donkey, right, who wears this shirt and is putting this podcast on in my bedroom, and my dog is trying to have sex with one of my pillows, right? If I can do it, right? I'm broke. I've got no money. If I can do it, oh my God, everybody can do it. It's a fact. Watch some of the videos that I've created from DJ Shipley and from Marcus Capone talking about hitting an emotional bottom. That would be some good homework to do. Listen to how do you know if you've hit an emotional bottom? There's part 1 with DJ Shipley, and there's part 2 with Marcus Capone, but his wife is the one that shares his bottom because for some reason he didn't want to do it, and his wife was willing to do it. And it's even more incredible. It's more incredible because they're SEAL Team 6 guys. The pinnacle of men. Everything that I think about when I think of a man makes me think of DJ Shipley, makes me think of Marcus Capone, right? Makes me think of Danny Dietz, right? Like, these men are men, okay? They do everything that I would think a man would be able to do. Special warfare, combat, all that shit. Jumping out of freaking planes. You play Call of Duty, you know what I'm talking about. You know, danger close, shit is right there, right? But when they've suffered so much explosive trauma and the trauma of war and have no idea how to talk about it and then find a solution and do it, I mean, they're in a worse state than I'm in. I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that they've had it worse than I have. Why? Because of traumatic brain injury. Now I'm really going off on another topic, but traumatic brain injury is no different than getting a concussion on the football field, right? It creates a dark spot in your brain, right? And the impact of that has adverse effects on soldiers, you know, special operations teams, you know, Delta Group, all these guys, right? They've confirmed it. It's a syndrome. And if I don't have that, I don't have traumatic brain injury, I'm not throwing breacher charges on my front door to keep dudes from coming in. You know what I mean? They're throwing breacher charges on the freaking door to blow it out, to go in and freaking eviscerate everybody. But you got to eat that charge. And that charge is like getting railroaded by Lawrence Taylor back in the 90s, 80s. You're just going to get knocked out. You know, you're going to have a concussion. And then you still got to fight. Have any of you seen Warfare yet? The combat movie? Go see that. Go see that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You will see wholeheartedly what these guys go through on a daily, not just once. They're doing this shit on a daily. And if you can stomach watching Warfare, it will help you understand that you don't have it as bad as they do when it comes to sharing your feelings, talking about your trauma. You don't have traumatic brain injury. These guys did. And I love them more for being willing to share that stuff. Okay? I really am. Went on a crazy tangent. So next episode, we're going to talk about armed and ready is the current state of being for many men, meaning they own firearms and support the views of militia. Holy shit. Can you imagine? I mean, how many preppers do you see on YouTube? They got 10 million fucking subscribers. It's a real thing. We're living in this right now. Headline number 7. So we're going to talk about that one for a little bit, and probably teeter on some of the topics that I brought up today. But please do me a favor. and just comment. Just say, hashtag GFY Rennick. I'd love to get some feedback. And if you're watching or listening to this on Apple or Spotify, if 5 people don't listen to the same podcast episode, they don't track the data. So I won't know if you post something unless you post a comment on Apple Podcasts. Same with Spotify. You got to leave a comment or I just won't see it or I won't know it. And if you're watching this stuff on YouTube or the YouTube podcast, any comments would be greatly appreciated. If you can't hear my voice, I'm excited about this. I really am. And I want to help in any way, shape, or form I can. And I'm committed. So do me a favor, go get yourself a Fresca. They're not a sponsor of the show. I just happen to, here's how much I love Fresca. I drank Fresca so much that I just don't buy it anymore, but my kid does. And so he's got a 12-pack in the fridge. And I just went there and asked him if I could have one, and he did. And so this is like a treat. It's a grapefruit beverage that has no sugar in it and is quenching. Fucking Fresca. Grab a Fresca. Tell your friends about the podcast. Don't tell your friends about the podcast. Share, subscribe, do all those things. Remember, just one thing. I'll see you in there.